Well, hello and welcome to today's video, which in this video, I want to talk about, are small indie makeup brands on the rise? Now, the short answer in my opinion is yes, but don't click away yet because I want to do like kind of a deep dive, really talk about this kind of resurgence that's happening, a renaissance, if you will.
Are you asking me to have a renaissance?
Of small indie makeup brands, because I feel like at one point they were really getting big and then all of a sudden they kind of not fell off, but they weren't as talked about, and now they're coming back up again. So I want to talk about all of that. Feel free to comment along with me, whatever your thoughts and opinions are, favorite indie makeup brands, all of that. Let's talk, let's discuss. By the way, if you are new to my channel and my face, my name is ashleyellix. I am completely makeup obsessed. I have been in the beauty industry for well over 15 years now, and I cannot get enough. Lately, my videos have been kind of deep dives behind the brands and things like that I find fascinating and I want to share with you guys. So if you want to see more of those kind of videos, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. And we are going to dive into it. So if you are ready to dive into it with me, then let's get going. Boop. So before we dive deep, let's first define what an indie brand is. Very simple definition. It is independently owned. So it's not built with a conglomerate. It isn't purchased from a conglomerate. It's just independently owned in and of itself. Some makeup brands might surprise you that are indie. Actually, Milk Cosmetics is still an indie brand, even though they're sold in Sephora. But Urban Decay, which was bought out pretty early on in their company's career, was purchased like within 5 years of the company being started. So it feels like indie because it's grunge, but it's actually not indie. And then Milk Cosmetics might feel like it's not an indie brand because it's sold Sephora, but it is. So Beauty Bakery, Juvia's Place, those are indie brands, but you got Too Faced, KVD Beauty, even Fenty is not an indie brand because they started with Kendo. So that is what we are talking about. That is what I've seen on the rise. Overall, in general, I personally feel like indie brands are on the rise, but specifically, I want to talk about these small indie brands that are having a major moment. I cannot help but when I log on to TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, I am flooded with different makeup brands that I've never heard of before that are independently owned, and they are releasing some bangerang product. That's why I feel like they're being hyped in one way, because they're coming out with some groundbreaking stuff, and it's super exciting to finally see. It's kind of like reinvigorating my taste and my love for makeup, which will never go away, but I'm getting kind of like doled out and just bored with these major brands that keep releasing the same stuff over and over. So before we talk about that though, this resurgence. Okay, so indie brands were really on the rise, I think at one point. I'm thinking like Lime Crime days, okay? If you've been in the beauty industry for any length of time or paid any kind of attention to it, you might remember when Lime Crime was really coming up. They were all over the makeup threads like Reddit and Tumblr back in the day. Lime Crime was that gal. Lime Crime was not one of the first, but in that time, a lot of brands were really starting to climb the ranks and it was super exciting. But I think Lime Crime, in my opinion, kind of soured the industry for a little while because they were caught doing some of the sketchy stuff we want to look out for with small indie brands. It's alleged that they were purchasing from private labeling companies, which is just really generic. They were buying bulk pigments and just repackaging with a huge markup. They weren't putting ingredient lists. They were changing ingredient lists on people, and it was just really sketchy. Kind of feel like Lime Crime in a way, and that's a whole different deep dive, but I feel like they were part of the reason why there was this big emergence of indie makeup, but they also kind of soured a lot of our taste in it too because they were doing some sketchy stuff. And it also made you kind of think about your purchases too, which is good. But yeah, that is why I think they kind of put on a back burner. Also, they started going into bigger stores, and a lot of these indie brands were starting to be bought out. In the last like less than 12 months, I feel like I have seen this crazy big push for small indie brands. I don't know if it's just my algorithm when I log on to these apps, but I think it's so exciting. And I think a lot of it is because of our consumer awareness that we have going on. A lot of us really want to think about where we're putting our money, who's getting our money, whose pockets are we lining. And a lot of times it isn't lining up with these big makeup brands that, I mean, hello, the guys that created it have never even touched makeup before in their life. And they felt like, oh, let's come up with this makeup brand, sell a lot of makeup because people like it, but they actually don't care. And you're really starting to see that in these millions of launches, that they're just putting out another product to sell. They're not they don't care. There's no heart and soul into it. And with these smaller indie makeup brands, you really see the thought out process. You know somebody's really investing everything they have into this, and they care, and they want to put out good stuff. And with that said, we touched on they're coming out with groundbreaking products. They're coming out. I didn't even know what a multi-chrome was until these last few weeks when I saw all these future video, okay, by the way, but these multi-chrome things, I don't see the large brands doing, and I see so many small indie brands doing so incredibly well. They are paving the way. Mark my words, you will see multi-chromes blow up in the next year or two, especially with bigger brands, because they're gonna be like, oh, there's a market for that? Okay, I guess let's do it. So they're paving the way. We can't forget about the little guys, and a lot of us don't want to. We want to support the small underdogs. We want to do everything that we can to help these small businesses that you actually have a real person behind. I mean, it's great. We can actually pick and choose where we're spending our money and our dollars now that we, have access to the internet, and we can find out, I want to support women-owned brands. I want to support Black-owned brands. There's just so many different options than only lining the fat cat's pockets. There's always going to be a market for these large brands because, hey, there's the average daily consumers that aren't on YouTube, that aren't makeup obsessed like I am. And there's going to be people that just walk into Sephora and grab the latest naked palette because they know it and they love it, and that's okay. But I just think it's so exciting to see these small indie makeup brands on the rise. Then with that said, I mean, I personally, maybe it's because I've been doing all these brand deep dives and doing a lot of research, I've just been getting really disenchanted with large makeup brands, and that's why I want to start supporting some more smaller indie brands because you find out things like what I did with Urban Decay, and I'll link that deep dive and everything down in the description box if you want to watch that. And it's just so, I know that companies, their point is to sell. That's their goal. They're making money. But when they purposely set out, we want to just make a brand to sell to L'Oreal. We just want to make a brand to get rid of it and make as much money as possible. Makeup, it's such an artistic form of self-expression that when you have this like tainted blah, it makes you feel icky. And you know what? I think we're seeing the downfall of a lot of major brands that can't keep up with the trends. Their formulas have just been garbage compared to these little indie brands that can do it so well. This big makeup brand with so much money behind it doesn't. It just feels forced. Now, I do want to put a disclaimer to be careful when you are purchasing from some small indie brands. Do a quick little research, try to find out the most you can about the brand because there are some bad players in that field as well, unfortunately. Just like the guys in the big corporate offices that are just cashing in, there are some small indie brands that are just trying to cash in, and they are buying their products stock, private labeling, having the company slap their name onto it, but it's the same palette that 19 other brands have come out with because it's just stock. It's stock palettes, but you're gonna pay $50 for this palette when they sell it for $5. A great resource I have found is actually here on YouTube. Amy Loves Makeup. She is like specifically really honing in on the indie makeup brands, specifically small indie brands, and she has so many videos that are so informative. One of them is about watching out for those bad players and making sure that you're purchasing from real authentic companies that are formulating their own products that are worth that price point, because just because it's a small indie brand does not mean it's affordable at all. And a lot of them are handcrafted, handmade, just so much that goes into it. The price justifies how much is going into it. So just because it's small, it doesn't mean it's affordable. It doesn't mean it's cheap. It just means it's independently owned. So check out her video. I'll link that specific one down in the description box too, because I think it's really important to check out and make sure that you are not only supporting brands that you want to support, but you're an aware consumer and you're not going to have what happened to some of us when Lyme crime that just started. And with that said, I do want to give a couple shout outs to some other resources here on YouTube, some other girls that I have been loving their videos and I have been learning so much from, and I've been getting so excited. Number one, Bad to the Brow. She is the multi-chrome queen. If you are getting into multi-chromes like I am, check out her swatches. Okay, amazing. She covers so many different small indie brands. It's so exciting. Also, Angie, she did a collab with Kaleidos. It was the Club Nebula palette. She's awesome. I'm sure you've heard of her. She's wonderful. And then Annette at Annette's Makeup Corner too also does a lot of small indie brands. And you have to check out Kim Croft. She is actually the one that introduced me to a lot of different independent brands over on her Instagram. So follow her on YouTube and Instagram. She posts great
stuff.
Those are the 4 girls with Amy Loves Makeup that I've been watching the last few weeks that I've just been obsessed and I've been learning so much from. So check them out. That's kind of all I wanted to talk about today. I just wanted to give like a little trend report. Small indie brands are on the rise. What do you guys want to see? What do you want to see me review and talk about? Because I got my eyes set on so many. I'm so excited. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Do you think the small indie brand rising is the trend? Is that what we're going to be seeing? Or am I totally missing the mark here? It's just so exciting to me. It's so exciting to see some small businesses being able to like come through, and that's just so exciting. Woo! Okay, so I'm sure I'll do an updated video on this topic in the future, but that was just like kind of what I was sitting around and thinking about. So make sure you subscribe before you go so you can see more. I am doing a little small indie brand review soon, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys later. Okay, bye.